So, brethren, it's a pleasure being here once again. And I would like to say thank you for all those that do take the time out from their busy schedules to listen to the segment, The Word. So, as I've always indicated, all scriptures will be read from the King James Version Bible. And today's segment, it's Snare number 8, and the topic is, For he is not a Jew, which is one outwardly, neither is that circumcision, which is outward in the flesh, but he is a Jew, which is one inwardly. So that's Romans chapter 2, verses 28 to 29. So I'll start right through. Today's segment is short, it's really short, and I do choose to do the segment in that way so that persons will be able to understand the message that I'm trying to convey, right? And as I've always asked, that you spend time reading the scriptures, reading the Holy Bible, right? And as you spend time reading God's word, God will continue revealing information to you. And what might seem troubling, eventually, after a while, it becomes extremely clear. So I'll start. As is expected, the topic, like the one which I did last week, dealt with is often used by our servants, the Adventist friends, and the offshoots, to teach that a Christian is a spiritual Jew. Their position, they think, is strengthened by the fact that the apostle, excuse, their position, they think, is strengthened by the fact that the apostle Paul simultaneously discussed in the same verse the Jew and the circumcised in heart issue. And if one were not skilled in the doctrines of the New Testament Church of Jesus Christ, one may be more than a little confused by this Jew circumcision linkage. However, when one studies Romans chapter 2 carefully, one would soon observe that the Apostle Paul is not using the term circumcised in heart as a synonymous phrase for the expression of one who is a Jew inwardly. For if that were done, that would contradict Jesus' teaching of Matthew chapter 9, verses 16 to 17, which catalog Judaism and Christianity as separate entities whose merger must never be contemplated, far less attempted or initiated. For if that were done, both Judaism and Christianity would suffer. If this be so, my question is, what then is Paul trying to communicate to the Church of Jesus Christ? I repeat, if this be so, what then is Paul trying to communicate to the Church of Jesus Christ? The following, I sincerely hope, would go a long way in clarifying this inward Jew issue. As I proceed to treat with this inward Jew issue, if possible, I would like you to read on your own time Romans chapter 2, verse 1, verses 3 to 12, and then verses 17 to 29. Then Romans chapter 3, verses 1 to 2, verses 9 to 10. And understand that the Apostle Paul is chiding the Jews for their hypocrisy of preaching one thing while they practice the opposite. So that's Romans chapter 2, verses 3 to 11. Accordingly, he was informing them that, notwithstanding the fact that they were the custodians of the oracles of God, as Romans chapter 3, verses 1 to 2 states, they were not better than the Gentiles, since, as far as God was concerned, both Jews and Gentiles were now partners in the same sinner's ship on the said disastrous hellbound trip, as Romans chapter 3, verses 9 to 10 states. From this perspective, therefore, we must understand that the Apostle Paul is informing the Jews in no uncertain terms that a true Jew is a Jew who is sincere in his words and deeds, and not one who was fortunate enough to be born a natural Jew. To cite a few examples of true Jews, we have Moses, Joshua, and Caleb, Joseph, and Daniel in Old Testament times. And during the times of Jesus' earthly ministry, we have Zacharias and Elizabeth, who were both declared to be righteous, as Luke chapter 1, verses 5 to 16, and Paul, of whom it is also recorded that he was blameless. So that's Philippians chapter 3, verse 6. Excuse. We also have Mary, the mother of Jesus, who was declared to be blessed among women, and Nathanael, whom Jesus declared to be an Israelite indeed, meaning a Jew, in whom there was no guile. Read John chapter 1, verse 47. So those names that I just mentioned represent Jews who were Jews in heart and not just Jews in flesh. I trust that the information will help you to understand what the Apostle Paul is saying in Romans chapter 2, verses 28 to 29 to us. Now, concerning the Apostle Paul's linkage of the inward Jew with the circumcised in heart, I forward, by God's grace, the following explanation. In Judaism, which is a religion of the Israelites, circumcision of the flesh was but the sign of circumcision of the heart, a sign which was given to Abraham after he stumbled in his walk and made Ishmael with his servants. By this fact alone, one understands that circumcision of the flesh was only the sign of circumcision of the heart and not true circumcision itself. This fact can be found in Romans chapter 4, verse 11. So because of that stated fact, the Jew, who by natural heritage is circumcised only in the flesh, is, in the sight of God, uncircumcised. If he is not circumcised in heart, as can be seen from the following excerpts, Jeremiah chapter 4, verses 3 to 4, and it says, For thus saith the Lord to the men of Judah and Jerusalem, break up your fallow ground, and sow not among thorns. Circumcise yourselves to the Lord, and take away the foreskins of your hearts, ye men of Judah and inhabitants of Jerusalem, lest my fury come forth like fire, and burn that none can quench it, because of the evil of your doings. So that's Jeremiah chapter 4, verses 3 to 4. So as I come to a close, brethren, those verses, therefore, we know that Paul is not saying that a true Jew is a Christian, but that is not so, for obvious doctrinal reasons. One being, while a Jew doesn't have to be born again to become a Jew, the acquisition of the new birth is an imperative of Christianity. This being the case, Romans chapter 2, verses 28 to 29 must be interpreted accordingly. A true Jew is a Jew who is sincere in practicing his or her Jewish religion from the heart. That is, a Jew whose actions confirm his or her declared beliefs. On the other hand, when a Jew's actions contradict his or her religious beliefs, that one, though circumcised in the flesh, disqualifies himself from being a Jew indeed. So, what I just mentioned and nothing else is the true interpretation of Romans chapter 2, verses 28 to 29. For Judaism and Christianity are separate entities with different callings, natures, and destinies, and as such must never be treated as synonymous entities. From Matthew chapter 9, verses 16 to 17, 2 Corinthians chapter 5, verses 16 to 17, Colossians chapter 3, verse 28, and Colossians chapter 3, verse 10 to 11, all contradict the SDA's position on this inward Jew issue. So that's the end of my segment today. I will be live next week again, brethren. I do hope you have a safe and productive week. Remember that Jesus Christ is returning and he will be returning soon. So spend time in God's holy word and don't forget to do devotions with your family. If you don't have a family as yet and you're living on your own, you can do devotions by yourself. So you can choose to do it in the morning or you can choose to do it at night before heading to bed. So bye for now.